and welcome again to Economy and Markets TV, the show that takes you around the world of economic and financial news. I'm Dave Okenquist, Senior Research Analyst here at Dent. It is Friday, which means it's time for the regular weekly dive into the news, and it also means that I welcome back my colleague, Rodney Johnson. Rodney, welcome.
Hey, Dave.
Rodney is the Senior Editor and Co-Founder of Dent Research, and he joins me each week where we highlight really the most important items of the week, just so we can run through them. We try to go, everybody's got, it's getting to the end of the week. You want to wrap things up, so we try to keep things moving along about 2 minutes. I've got a bell to keep Rodney in line, and I, as you can tell,
not afraid to use it.
Yeah. Rodney, are you ready to get into our biggest topic, which came out this morning?
Let's go.
All right. So U.S. GDP for the first quarter came up 2.3%, which is above expectations of 2%. We saw a rise in business investment, inventory, exports, government, because yes, government spending does contribute to GDP. Yep. But despite tax reform, personal consumption is just not there. So my question to you is, what's going on with consumers? They're just not cooperating. Will they? What?
Well, we think they will, and they are, right? I mean, personal consumption is expanding. It's just not at the pace that people want it to be.
Right.
And it's something we've talked about for a long time. If you look back to the beginning of the quarter, back January 1, a lot of people estimated first quarter growth at 4% plus. Atlanta GDP Now, the model that, of course, we watch, got all the way up over 5% there at the beginning of February based on a couple of numbers. And then they walked it back. And people spent the quarter walking it back, noting that consumers just weren't spending at the pace they had expected. And we were one of the first to raise our hand when the tax reform came around and say, look, it's great. We applaud it for, a number of business reasons, but don't expect consumers who are getting an extra bit of money in their paycheck to just run out and spend it all because they've got a lot of concerns. And so we think that's the same old thing, right? I mean, you get a little bit extra money, maybe you pay down that credit card, maybe you put it towards retirement, maybe you spend a little, but you're not rushing out to spend it all. And that's going to be the story, not just in the first quarter, but throughout the year, we believe, where I don't expect GDP to be more than about 2.5% for the year. Probably get a bump near 3 or a little above for the second quarter and then come back down again and kind of disappoint the people who are thinking, hey, this is great, we're just going to lift off. Not going to happen.
Yeah, just a related news that came out also this morning. Private employee wages rose almost 3% for the year. That's some news. So wages keep ticking up. So just to follow up there is, could that be a catalyst? Finally, we got a little bit in the consumers got a bit in taxes, some coming back to them in their paychecks, as well as just wages rising. Is that enough to move the needle? But it doesn't sound like you don't think it's going to.
I don't, because it's the move from 2.5 to 3, and that's not a big move. It's a positive move, right? Everybody wants wages to go higher. That's a great thing. But you have to look at the other side. Inflation's around 2%, and the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, which is personal consumption expenditure, which is in the GDP report this morning, was up 2.5%. And so that gives the Fed room to raise rates more convincingly than perhaps they might have. And so you can expect to pay a little bit more on your credit card debt in terms of interest or any loans you might take out. And so we just think that we're looking at prices and wages running a little bit together.
Yeah, okay. Makes a lot of sense there. I think it feels like we're in like sort of a squeeze period here, trying to make it through to be able to keep the market from crashing, keep raising rates, and somehow keep GDP from steadily moving up. It's
like keeping all the balls in the air, and one day they're going to fall.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. All right, our next topic is home sales. We've really combined like three things that happened. We had existing home sales, new home sales, and we had the U.S. National Price Index come out. And so existing home sales, they were up 1.1% in March, but off for the yearly growth. But new home sales were up 4%. So we're starting to get into spring, Rodney. The thing that stands out to me still is prices. Let me just read this. The median existing price is up 3.9%. The median for new homes, 3.5%. And then the Case-Shiller just 0.8% for the month, but 6.8% for the year.
Right.
Rodney, are we still in wait and see mode here? What is going on with prices and things?
Well, we saw home sales dip over the winter season, and we had a more difficult winter than we've had in a while in terms of a number of snowstorms, the nor'easters that came through the Northeast. Imagine that. Right. A lot of ice storms. I had snow at my house 3 times here between Houston and Galveston down in South Texas. And so it's just kind of crazy, which keeps people out of the market some during what are typically very weak months anyway. And so they get seasonally adjusted to try and smooth out the year, Well, that adds a lot of distortion. So I wasn't paying much attention to them. It's these numbers that were from March and the price number for Case-Shiller is actually from February that are the first indication of spring. And it looks like it's going to be good, not great. And that is a common theme when it comes to housing. Good, not great in terms of the number of sales. And it tells you that people remain cautious in terms of builders putting out new product and stuff. They don't want to get caught like they were in 2007 and 8. And so they're being very methodical and bringing out inventory. And what it leads to is a squeeze in supply, which of course pushes up prices, which is exactly what you said. So far, it hasn't pushed down the number of buyers that are out there. But it's got to at some point, right? At some point, we reach that unaffordability, and real estate's lumpy, and so it doesn't hit the nation as a whole at one time. You'll see the lumpiness come through, as Harry Dent's noted, in the highest price markets first, and then it'll roll out into other areas that have had strong growth. So it'll happen at some point, but for right now, I still expect real estate to keep plodding along, just like it has for the last several years.
Well, it sounds a bit like GDP. Good, not great. It's just going to keep moving along.
It is. And to your point, this is the story of the economy really for a long time. This is since the recession. Everybody said, oh, well, we dipped so low, we have to at some point reach this acceleration or breakout level where we just fly to the upside. No, we don't. It was a deep recession. We haven't dealt with all the debt. It can take many years to work through these issues.
Welcome to sustained mediocrity.
Yeah, and economically, exactly.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. We are right at 2 minutes here, so let's move on to our next one. This one's concerning oil. So oil inventory rose 2.2 million barrels, which is a big dip from the comparison year to year. But Rodney, I understand you have a bit of a mea culpa on this topic.
I do. It was a year ago plus. The Saudis and the OPEC members and their non-OPEC members that were in agreement with them decided to cut supply by 200,000 barrels a day, or production rather. And I was one of the big naysayers. I looked at it and said, seriously, this is the no honor among thieves things, right? These people lie to each other all the time. They say, yeah, I'll cut. And then they say, no, you cut. I'll just keep producing. And so I didn't believe they'd be able to stick to it, and they've done it. They've been able to stick to it. Prices rose from the mid-40s. Now we're in the upper 60s and over 70 for Brent, which has, of course, helped those producers. But something changed. I mean, along the way, we became one of the largest producers on the planet. And by several measures, we will be the largest oil producer in the world by the mid-2020s. And so higher prices, instead of being the huge drag it was on the United States for decades, is now actually quite a boost for the energy sector. Now, you and I are going to pay more at the pump, which we already do. But it's not a lot more than we've paid in the past. As a matter of fact, we're on the low end if you look at the price of gasoline on an inflation-adjusted level. And so what we've got is higher prices for oil actually benefiting American industry. That's not so bad.
No, not at all. Certainly, you mentioned exports from American oil. It's actually, I got this chart right in front of me there's a story that came out in Bloomberg. We're at all-time highs of putting American oil in Europe. So even that, I mean, we are actually getting some cash there. Like you said, we got prices rising. We are not dependent on OPEC anymore, and that's a great thing, right?
Yeah, it's a bit misleading to say we're energy independent because of some factors in terms of efficiency. It's a lot more efficient to bring in oil from Canada and pipe it right over the border to petroleum facilities in the North United States than it is to ship it from, say, the West Texas fields all the way up there. And so because of some efficiencies and because of the way some refineries are set up, we still import, but on a net number, we're really close.
Yeah, certainly good news there.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to our final topic here, and this one's a little bit of humor here, a little bit of intergenerational warfare going on. A recent survey came out saying 51%, so a majority of millennials believe boomers have made things worse.
Yeah,
Rodney,
who runs these surveys, right?
What's that?
Who runs these surveys? I love them.
Well, a survey monkey, right? I don't know. I mean, look, hey, I'm a millennial, and okay, so boomers, there is maybe a little bit of reckoning here. You helped kill off God. You picked all the low-hanging economic fruit. We have open borders. You've racked up trillions of dollars, and now we have to, continue to pay for you as you sunset out of the world. However, I bet you there's probably a lot of boomers watching right now that are nodding their heads and saying yes. Rodney, what's your take on this?
A third of the boomers say that they made their own generation worse. But as I noted, I mean, there are many wonderful things the boomers did for the United States. They ushered in civil rights changes. They ushered in equality in a number of areas.
Absolutely.
Things we're still working on, of course. They actually invented the term workaholic. I mean, they were the workhorse of the United States during the go-go years in the 80s and 90s. And so a lot of great things came from the boomers. I found the survey interesting because not only did 51% of the millennials say that the boomers made things worse for their generation, well, that would be their parents, right? Because millennials are kids of the boomers. But about a third of the silent generation said the boomers made things worse. Well, that would be the parents of the boomers. Yeah. And so the boomers are getting blamed by everybody for what happened. And so very unfortunate for them. But I think in the survey, about 30% of boomers say they kind of screwed it up for themselves. So
yeah. Boomers they're basically evenly split. So, yeah.
They are definitely the whipping boy right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a little bit of fun. I love the boomers. I love them all. So just having a bit of fun here.
We keep playing their music. We can't get away from it in elevators now. So what can you do?
Oh, absolutely. And I love it. So there you go. I've got just one bonus question, Rodney. This thing came up, I think, yesterday. Ford announced that they are going to be dropping nearly all of their sedans. They're only going to produce the Mustang and then a soon-to-be-released Ford Focus Active. So no more Ford Taurus, no more sedans. It's just kind of a weird thing for North America. So are we going to be living in a truck world, Rodney, or is this somehow going to reverse itself? Because it seems like the best buy in a couple of years is going to be a well-appointed sedan, right?
Well, the best buy right now is well-appointed sedan because car manufacturers can't sell them for near the profit that they can trucks and SUVs. But I think what Ford is doing is they're looking at the market and saying our focus in terms of profit is certainly on SUVs and trucks. And so we're going to make more of what makes us a lot of money.
Yeah.
They're not saying that there will not be sedans. What they're doing is yielding that space to other producers like the Japanese. I mean, they're looking at the Nissans and the Toyotas and saying, you want a sedan? Go get a Camry, for goodness sake. Yeah. I find it interesting that they call the Mustang a sedan because I don't know if you've been in one lately. You can't fit much in the dumb thing. I think they're cool. But with so many different car manufacturers producing on U.S. soil, BMW, Mitsubishi, Toyota, Nissan, Hyundai, Kia. I mean, everybody produces here. Mercedes has their plant outside of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's really hard to say that, we're yielding all that space to somebody who's on a distant shore. We're just saying, guess what? The guy down the street makes it better than me, and that's where he wants to focus. Go ahead. And we can't dismiss the fact that there are still very big tariffs and trade issues around barriers around importing pickup trucks. So you don't see a lot of foreign pickup trucks beyond the Nissans and the Toyotas floating around.
Right.
And so Americans still have those sewn up, and it makes a lot of money for them.
Yeah, actually, we just mentioned that, I believe 2 weeks ago with South Korea, they extended that by like 20 years for importing trucks. So you'll not see a Korean truck for a while.
Exactly.
Thank you, Rodney. All right, that's all the time we have for this week. Looking ahead to next week, the biggest item, it seems to me, is going to be U.S. employment on Friday. We also get Eurozone GDP and auto sales. We'll see what's going on there. We'll probably just more trucks, right? And we also get a Fed meeting, but probably nothing too much is going to come out of that, right, Rodney?
I wouldn't think so. They'll probably say they're still on track, and so it'll be a non-event.
Okay. Keep an eye on that just in case. I want to thank you, Rodney, for coming on. I want to thank all of you for watching. And if you don't subscribe to the digital version of Economy and Markets, please just go to Economy and Markets, share your email. I think you'll get some great information there each and every day. Again, thank you all, and we'll see you next week.